In 3, 2, 1, roll the footage! Welcome back, everybody, to the Strategy Show. I'm Severino, your host, and today our guest invests in early-stage companies and has an obsession to see entrepreneurs succeed. He works with his family office based out of Mumbai, India, which covers the whole world, and is led by top 10 angel investor Sanjay Mehta. He's part of the investment committee that evaluates and invests in unlisted US companies. He's building up expertise on international transactions and investments through working with early stage founders. Welcome, everybody. Hershel Mehta.
Pleasure to be on the show. Happy to.
So cool to have you here.
Happy to share my insights.
Yes, I'm so curious. What excites you? What do you see out there? What excites you? And you have brought 3 CEO tips: how to invest better, how to provide value, and you will share with us what excites you, industries that you like. So what are you currently creating?
So, I started investing, formally a few years back, leading my own deals. Before that, I was part of the family's investments, but now, kind of full-fledged and autonomous. So currently, the family has quite a large presence in India, having invested in over 100 Indian startups, and we've cemented ourselves or wedged ourselves as legitimate investors out there. So, my strategy essentially was, with a country like India that's emerging, that we see kind of growing at a pace that that's frankly quite astonishing. It becomes a very viable market, and part of the reason why is just sheer number of individuals. Also, you have the second largest English-speaking population in the world after the United States, and then thirdly, you have 650 million people under the age of 27. For these reasons, the market is very appealing, especially for international companies. So, if you're a U.S. company, if you're a LATAM company, you do want to eye India as a potential expansion point in a few years. So, I've been kind of helping U.S. companies with their go-to-market strategy. It's very challenging if you're early stage to navigate the subcontinent, but it's something you can't ignore. So, we're working with startups, analyzing, does it make sense today? What do you need to do? That kind of stuff. So what I'm building now actually is focused on India. The reality is that we're looking at a geography that is very appealing from a talent perspective and then from a market perspective. And some of the major trends that we're noticing is that over the past 40 years, India is one of our countries that was a victim of what we call a brain drain, meaning that if you were in the top % of talent, it was hard to justify staying in the subcontinent. And the reason was the market did not meet your potential as an individual. The market has since now caught up. And now with the recent wave of nationalism and in a country that is has a self-identity, this has become too large to ignore. And you have a young population that is naturally, close to STEM, huge numbers of engineers, huge numbers of people that have foreign experience and are now building in India for the world. And then on top of it, you have market conditions that have led to hundreds of millions of people entering into a middle class with disposable income. So this has become a hugely attractive market, not only from an international perspective, but even a domestic perspective. So currently I'm launching a vehicle specifically focused on Gen Z founders in India, realizing that this population is just too young and too smart to ignore. So trying to double down and figure out opportunities where to get in on these early stage young startups, specifically focusing on 650 million people under the age of 25 is where I'll be spending a lot of my time going forward.
Exciting. And what trends do you see and are you exploring and scouting for?
Yeah, what's fascinating to me is when you look at kind of how markets develop. It starts with like massive consumerism. So you have to have an area that is willing to buy stuff, and then whatever they buy has to be of value, right, to them at that moment. So when I look at India with the third largest purchase power parity behind the United States and China, it's very evident that this is a consumer market. But the reality is, if you're a startup and you want to sell to consumers and you really want to crack that code of providing value to an individual, you have to have deep consumer insights. You have to know the customer, even before they know themselves. It's kind of like that idea of when you feel like Facebook is spying on you. Oh, they're listening to my conversation because the ad popped up. No, Facebook is just smart enough to know that that's what you were going to talk about before you even talked about it. So that kind of consumer insight, when entrepreneurs can tell me something I don't know or give me some sort of knowledge on, hey, this is what young people want or crave, and I have data-backed reasoning to show it, I get very excited. And then when you're looking at a digitally native population, especially Gen Z around the world, technology is going to be their first point of consumerism. So, when I'm used to, making or spending money just via my iPhone, and then on top of it, now I'm going to be used to making money on my iPhone. It's clear that tech is going to be the driving force for commerce to come, especially in markets around the world. If I have to pinpoint one place in particular I'm very excited about, it's marketplaces. When I look at a young population, my consumer insight is they don't put up with inefficiency. There is no middleman. There's no call this person, and then finally you'll get to what you need to go. Everything needs to be direct. No one's calling a cab service and saying, hey, this is where I'm at, come get me. You need to remove those middlemen. And so a country that's bogged down with inefficiencies actually creates a lot of room for opportunities. And this is the reality of every developing nation, right? These countries have a lot of Minutemen type positions, and those will all be eliminated in the next 20 years by technology. So that's where I'm very, very bullish on.
Absolutely. And I'm curious who you nominate for the award. If you could only pick one person when everybody is zigging, this person is zagging, but from your perspective, they are doing the right thing. Who is this person?
So when I look at, particularly, if I'm talking about startups and if I'm going to focus on India, which is actually the third largest startup ecosystem on the planet, the word would have to be kind of insular to my cousin Sanjay Mehta, who launched 100x.vc. This is tremendous what he's doing. See what happens in a developing nation like India that has unicorns, that has tech that has popped up, is you basically have three buckets of founders. You have a first bucket of founders who are individuals who have sold a company. This is their second go around. And because there's enough capital inflow into the country, those people can raise an ungodly amount by anybody they want at any valuation they want. That's one bucket. Then you have a second bucket, which are networked individuals, perhaps an early employee at one of these companies, or somebody like yourself who has a podcast, who's plugged into the network, is able to go ahead and create a solution to a problem and raise a seed round with relative ease. And then you have this third bucket, which is this raw, under 25-year-old founder coming from tier 2 to tier 4 cities who just doesn't have that exact network just yet. And what I see, what he's building is actually something to really kind of hone in on that third bucket of entrepreneurs. And that to me is phenomenal. And the companies he's dug up and the movement these founders have had while going through 100x, it's something very special is being built there. When you democratize access to venture networks for a population, similar to what YC did 10 years ago, seeing what he's doing in India, this is phenomenal. Not only for us, but just for the entire system in general. You're giving a lot of people a chance just to create something, and more importantly, you're unlocking their imagination. So from an execution perspective, this is tremendous what he's doing. So if I was going to nominate somebody for the strategy award, it would be Sanjay Mehta of 100x.vc.
Beautiful. Your CEO tip number 1: how to invest better.
Yeah, this is This is very challenging. I think a lot of investors, including myself, we look for certain signaling and momentum within financing rounds. The reality is, like, this is hard, right? You're going to run into chicken and egg issue all the time. How do I get momentum without somebody taking that first step, right? So when it comes to investing, this kind of herd mentality, it doesn't work. You have to have conviction. You have to have a thesis, and it takes time. It takes mistakes. It takes bad investments to actually refine that. So, once you kind of hone in on what you like to see and what works and what doesn't work, you're able to make better judgment calls. On top of it, you should be able to gauge founders a lot easier. So kind of walking them through a rubric, making sure they understand basic accounting fundamentals is something I'm very, very bullish on. So having them walk me through their balance sheet, walk me through their income statement, these are all diligence items I do beforehand now. So if a founder does not understand basic fundamentals of accounting, I don't think that they're going to be a great business individual. This is like, 101 type stuff. So I would say, if as an investor, you have to have spaces spaces you have a thesis of, and then you have to be able to test the founder before writing a check. Our key is to move quickly and invest with conviction and invest in as many companies as possible. Those that in private markets that take a very concentrated approach without a very refined thesis will be burned. It doesn't work. And if you're kind of herd mentality investing, you can make money, but you're not going to get in at the certain entry point, and then you're going to get pushed out. Because if there's a bigger investor on the table, you become much, much less valuable and you get left behind.
Before we go to your second CEO tip, how to provide value, a short thank you to the sponsors.
Hey, if you love what you are hearing, you will love our free masterclasses. Go grab them at strategysprints.com.
Your second CEO tip, how to provide value.
So there's two sides of this equation. As an investor, the biggest thing you can bring to the table is a network by far. So when you're investing full time, or if you plan on being an angel investor, you are only as strong as your network. So you have to do whatever it takes to get exposure, to be able to meet certain people, to be able to make certain introductions that are invaluable to the startup. And part of that is keeping the startup what I call top of mind. So this works both ways. If you as an entrepreneur want to extract value from an investor or an individual, you have to be top of mind for them. You have to update them. You have to get on the call with them. You have to be upfront about what do you want, right? And this type of kind of openness and communication leads to actual transactions occurring, leads to introductions being made, right? If I'm thinking, if I've invested in 30, 40 startups, if you're calling me every week saying, hey, Hershel, I need this, I'm going to be thinking about you. And when I meet that individual through my network, because I'm networking, knowing that this is important, I can facilitate that introduction. So I would say the biggest, most valuable thing is having a strong network and doing whatever it takes. And it takes years, right? You have to give first to be able to build that network. So whatever you have that's special, whatever you can do that's special, open it up and start building today, because you're always one degree of separation away from who you want to be with, who you want to know within your network. So this is the most crucial thing for most entrepreneurs and investors alike.
Give first, people, give first and curate your network. How do you curate your network? Do you have a structured approach? Do you have rounds, masterminds that you create or that you visit?
Oh, it's across the board. I would say that the biggest thing that you have to do is you have to align yourselves with individuals who are also willing to open up their networks, and you have to hustle to get into these networks. So, for example, if I'm in a private investor group, right now, this investor group sees a lot of companies, maybe there's 300-400 people in it, and, it's private, right? This is a private network. You have to have some sort of level of referral to be able to get in. So if I'm a new investor, access to this group is going to change my trajectory, right? Something that would have taken me a year, now I'm getting access to today. So let's say you wanted to tap into my network. If you were able to provide me some value of, hey, I saw this startup, this is really good, here's a deal, here's an individual you should talk to that's in my network, you better believe I'm going to reciprocate that and say, hey, you should join this network. This will help you. Now, if we have an interaction where I feel like this individual has not really given me anything, I'm probably not going to take the first step, right? So this is something where both people have to be mutually willing to give. And when both people give, those are when actual relationships form. So the individual that got me into that network, I would do anything for that individual, right? He's the one that changed my trajectory, right? So it is challenging. You will run into issues, but the harder you work, the more people you'll meet, the more open you are, the more value you'll provide, and then things start dominoing. Then you become an individual that people seek out. And once you're that, then you can pick and choose who you let in or out based on their quality and based on their ability to execute.
What did you recently change your mind about?
So I used to be very generalist and very agnostic, meaning that a lot of things used to excite me. Everything still does excite me. But the reality is, as an investor, you do need to have specific areas of expertise, of value add, of stronger network. That way you can make logical, refined decisions based on experience, right? Not based on herd mentality, not based on momentum. So, before I used to see specific venture funds that were specifically focused on, let's call it, fintech or marketplaces or whatever it is. And I used to say, why are they limiting themselves to this sector? And slowly, I've realized that's actually brilliant, right? Then you brand yourself as, hey, I'm the best investor in this section. And if you're creating this type of startup, you need me on the cap table, right? And if you have a broad thesis on a particular sector, the amount of network effect, the value you can provide is tremendous, right? Because all of this stuff is related because it falls in the same category. So, what I've realized is, before I used to think, hey, let's build a wider network, let's provide wider value for more people. Now I'm starting to realize a stacked approach is probably better over time. You need to have consumer insights. You need to be deep in how you're thinking, and you need to have conviction. And the only way to build that is through experience. And unfortunately, it cannot be that wide. Otherwise, you're going to spread yourself too thin, and then the actual value you provide is shallow, right? You want to be deep in what you're into.
I'm curious how you ensure execution for your portfolio companies, because I've seen many, they get a lot of money, but what they really need is the focus on the right KPIs, the challenging question that says, hey, are you doing the fancy stuff this week? And again, you did not do the one thing that you need to do this week. You were coding all the time, but you need to ask for the next client or for a referral, or that kind of tough love that they need, but also the experience and needed to stay focused in execution. Do you coach them yourself? Do you outsource that? Do you have an accelerator? How do you do that?
No, you have to be hands-on. And the reality is that founders won't know. So you as an investor, you as somebody that's backed them, you as somebody that's written a check and believes in them, you have to pass as much knowledge as possible. So I'd say communication is key. Understanding what KPIs to track, what they actually mean, how this affects your balance sheet, how this affects your income statement, what specific decisions make, right? Like whether or not to hire, or contract. Do I need this tech built in house? And to be frank, it actually makes it a lot easier when you have multiple co-founders, right? So, basically what we've been seeing is, and this is an unpopular opinion, but computer science in general is an overrated degree. The reality is, if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, engineering is on its way to become commoditized. In fact, you're seeing stuff like Nocode coming out. Like people can build technology products without a deep understanding of computer science. Now, I'm not saying that it's not important. What I am saying is there's more to entrepreneurship than just technical prowess. And I think that a lot of time engineers actually end up with a narrow focus and missing the big picture, which is the market, right? So I look for entrepreneur teams that have a wide array of experience. I want to see that technical co-founder. That's a must. But I also need to see somebody with world experience, with customer experience, right? You need to have balance within the founding team, and that's what leads to a higher chance of executing at a higher level. So, at the early stage, you want to focus on growth. You want to focus on finding PM fit. This can actually be justified by actual customer interactions, by showing that 100 people really love what I'm doing and I'm building value for this subset of individuals, and then this can scale, right? So that's what I would really, really kind of focus on is who are you selling this to, and do they like what you're selling? Like, can this thing grow? And that kind of insights is crucial, and it comes from individuals that have a wide experience, not a narrow experience of just building. So, the big thing is just communication, understanding, hey, this is where the founders are strong, and this is what they need. This is what they'll need help with. I mean, I've seen amazing technical founders. You tell them that, hey, this button didn't work. 2 seconds later, there's a new build, and you're like, wow, these guys are phenomenal. But you have to have that consumer insight for it to actually click. Otherwise, the technical, it doesn't mean anything. So know your customer, right? And so whoever that is, understand them on a level that nobody else knows. Tell me as an investor something I don't know about this customer base is what I always tell founders.
This is so powerful, and nobody yet said it so clearly. Engineering is going to be commoditized since the no-code movement is so strong, and I am happy that you say it so clearly. We were no-code from the get-go, but still many people don't know what this movement is. Basically, you don't need to build the technical infrastructure to create a great marketplace or whatever technical solution it is, because you can pull together the pieces that are there, and there are enough elements. You just communicate, you let them talk to each other. So this part says, if this happens, then this happens. And that's the no-code movement. You just pull together the parts. There are wonderful parts out there. They're quite cheap, actually. And you can build a global, wonderful solution to a problem without having to code anything for many years. And maybe you will later, but definitely the first years, the crucial ones, you can go very far without that. I love it. Do you have some examples? Can you tell our audience a little bit more of a no-code company that's doing well?
So generally, I'm okay investing in a no-code company if they've demonstrated some sort of PM fit and a desire to go and kind of take the next step. Off the top of my mind, though, none of my startups have started no-code. Most of them have had some sort of technical co-founder on the team to build. But this is the wave. This is the trend, right? So if I have a particular idea that specifically interacts with an individual, then or with the customer, you can actually prove that this is what people want. So the best examples for current no-code companies that are in venture, may not actually be tech, but are selling a product, would be things like edtech, an individual that creates a site that's able to sell content, or a D2C company that's able to just reach customers via their Shopify, whatever it is. So these types of kind of platforms that allow for no code have unlocked a brand new kind of gamut of entrepreneurs, and there's tons of them that have done super well. So for me, I like the actual platform build, but entrepreneurs can execute on a business, with a no code solution, and that's totally fine, right? Before you actually needed some technical co-founder to build something to prove, hey, I have PM fit. That's no longer the case. You can actually use one of these platforms to say, people want to buy what I'm selling. And then if you need to build something technical, you can do that later down the line. And to be completely honest, entrepreneurship and investing, while they're related, they are not locked. Like, you do not need investment to prove that you're a good entrepreneur. Do not think that not everything needs to be venture backed. I mean, one of my favorite examples are individuals that start these newsletter businesses. If you're able to get one person a day to subscribe to your $10 a month newsletter, 5 years from now, you'll be making over $500,000 on that newsletter. Like, that's a lot of money for an individual. Like, you don't need venture to do that. This is you writing a blog post and getting one subscriber a day. So, I personally, one of my big learnings is don't always couple investment with entrepreneurship. And I tell entrepreneurs that all the time. Why are you pitching me? Why do you even need this money? Like you don't even, are you asking me just to get a valuation just so that you can compare with the person that got in the TechCrunch article? Because I'm not really interested in that. You can execute this without financing, especially equity financing, which is the most costly type of financing. So in terms of specific no-code companies, top of my mind would be hard to name. I don't have any in my portfolio. But the wave is coming, and you could see it already with D2C companies as well as content providers. So it's happening before we speak.
Absolutely, I love it. And I also love it that you as an investor say, hey, people, go bootstrap first if you can. And just if you need something, like if you need a piece of the puzzle, it can be the knowledge, it can be the resources, it can be the experience, then okay, let's talk. But money alone is not the first principle, and is not a written law in any form.
Absolutely. See, what's beautiful is I would say if I meet an entrepreneur who's not raising funding, right, who has a bootstrap business that's doing phenomenally well, and we start building a relationship, I will want to invest in that company. I will say, hey, you're executing. Why aren't you taking money? Take my money. I want a piece of your business. That conversation is much different than that individual that I don't have a relationship with that's asking me to invest in their business. See, like he's flipped the tables on me. And the reality is not every business needs equity funding. It's just, right? You can
absolutely,
even if you need some financing from day one, just to get started, just to have a team, whatever it is, you can reach out to your network, your friends and family network. You can reach out to individual angels that are around you. Everyone's one degree away. And if you're not, become friends with entrepreneurs, provide entrepreneurs some value, right? There's a founder kinship that is sacred. So the more entrepreneurs you meet, the more people, that's like how your network will grow. And guess what my favorite deals are as investors. In fact, I just wrote a check into a company. It's founder referrals. So when one founder that I've invested in says, hey, this is my friend, I can vouch for him, here's his deal, the likelihood of me investing is probably 2 or 3 times higher when it comes from somebody I trust who I've given money to. So be friends with entrepreneurs, right? Provide some entrepreneurs some value, and then they'll open up their network. And now guess what? It stacks. And now all of a sudden you have a strong network, and all the founders know who you are, and all the investors will know who you are as well. And then people will want in on your company as long as you're driving value to an end customer.
I love it. We did at the beginning, we did a Y Combinator month at their startup school. And then we did get some offers, and we turned them all down. We didn't even discuss them. And then my friends around me were, hey, why don't you take it? It's there. And I was like, I don't need it. That's not the point. The point was being challenged. I want, of course, to be challenged by as many bright minds as possible. And I will use every chance for them to show me where my business model is broken, where my vision is not sharp enough, where I am getting off track, what I am not seeing. That's for me value number one. And then if I need money, we will take it. But before there, no need. I am curious, which books did touch you recently on investing?
Yeah, I think Chris and Reid Hoffman's Blitzscaling is an awesome read. So Blitzscaling is kind of that venture model and growth at all costs. It comes with some specific drawbacks, but the reality is that if you have a technology product that you can distribute and get into the hands of as many individuals as possible and create some sort of network effect so people cannot leave, this is the most powerful tool to scale, especially in a software component. So Blitzscaling, this is fascinating to me because specifically as somebody that's looking at the Indian market, this is how those companies become huge. Within India, you have these smaller kind of tickets, right? Like, individuals don't have as much buying power as they would in the United States. So you need a big user base in order to justify your own business, right? It's like, okay, if I can get 1 billion people spending $1, that's $1 billion of ARR, that kind of concept, right? So how do you get 1 billion people? How do you distribute this? And that book had tremendous knowledge about distribution and how to grow. I highly recommend it for individuals that are ready to kind of take that step once they hit that PM fit and really scale a company. And it's not all about buying. It's about how to create that network effect so that it goes from one person to 50 people based on just that one individual. So really interesting stuff. I really enjoyed it. It's a good read.
Blitzscaling, everybody, not just for the Silicon Valley. Blitzscaling.
Yes, it is. Everything comes down to distribution. That's like the big key. And how do you get your product, your software, whatever you're building, how do you get it in the hands of as many people as possible and create a network effect? So highly recommend reading it.
Beautiful. And what was maybe more of a personal book that touched you?
You know, I have always kind of been a big fan of it's kind of odd, but you know, it's in our culture we have a specific story called the Mahabharata, and that's been very close to me for a while. It's an ancient mythology, and you know, because I work with my family, it's a fascinating concept of kind of infighting, how to solve things, and the big thing of how to just execute. Right, how to not hesitate. Something that I hold very dear. And don't get me wrong, it's not very religious, but from a mythology standpoint, very fascinating story. I would highly recommend anybody. Even the TV show is quite funny, but I would recommend grabbing some specific snippets, good wholesome stories in there, and some crazy ones. So take a look.
My family said, Simon, you're crazy. What did you buy again? Because Amazon brought such a brick of books. It's 12 pieces, and it's the Mahabharata. And it's a beautiful edition. Every single book has one animal on it. It's beautiful. And I have a passion for the essential books. So the pre-modern books, the books that are always worth reading, and trying to read more of them. So if you can, in a couple sentences, promote it a little bit. What is the for these times? Is it the warrior ethos? Is it the navigating complexity and distraction and creativity? What is it that people can take from it if they read it now?
I think it's mostly a concept of not hesitating. Right? Like if you honestly believe that you're on this planet to do a specific task, don't even think about it. Just do it. Just act. Right? The more you kind of overthink, the more you get stuck. So going from 0 to 1 is just going from 0 to 1. You know, we have I have this kind of thought process of individuals who are thinking about getting in entrepreneurship. You know, what I call entrepreneurs. Nothing bad, but just individuals that feel like they have a higher purpose, or maybe working for somebody, trying to figure it out. Maybe they don't have risk capacity. Maybe they don't have the ability to go do something, which, everybody has their own challenges. But if that fire is in you, you have to act on it. Otherwise you'll remain unsatisfied forever. So part of where I look at it's like a graph, right? You have, you have basically, getting started, you have 0 and 1. Right. So it's okay to be at 0, right? Like, that's great. It's not okay to be at 0.5, because being at 0.5 means that you're putting in effort and it's not going anywhere. Like, it's not enough. You just have to go to 1. So, if you're going to do something, do it all out. Don't do it with 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Really hone in on, hey, this is what I'm doing, and announce it. Tell people this is what I'm doing. Like, be shameless. The individuals that have a hard time kind of taking that step or telling people, hey, this is what I'm doing, they end up in no man's land. And if you're in no man's land, you're doing nothing for no one. And that's like a huge waste of your time. So it's okay, be at 0. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to go to 1, just go to 1. Don't go in between. So I think that
I love it. Yeah.
One of the bigger lessons it taught me.
Don't hesitate. Very relevant principle for these times, for any times, but especially for these funky times. I also was very touched. Last week I read by Steven Pressfield, Turning Pro, which has a very similar direction. It says, I was at 0. I went to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. I was miserable in life. I had no direction. I then decided to go pro, which basically to go full in, to go one. And that changed everything.
Absolutely.
Not just my trajectory, but my life, my energy level, my clarity, my purpose in life, his relationship. So it's a wonderful book about how to really become a writer, but it can be in any context, how to really become a pro and get serious at what you do.
Absolutely.
I love it. Wow. And who should be my next guest?
I would say my partner. One of my good friends. The two of us have been investing in India for a few months now. He's fascinating. His name's Brendan Rogers, who's co-founder of a company called WAG. Fascinating guy. Just went through ups and downs as an entrepreneur. Highly recommend you take him on as a guest. Absolutely brilliant. Scaled the business to 4,000 cities. Knows ins and outs of marketplaces. Would highly recommend him on the program. I think your listeners and readers would gain a lot from him.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Hershel Mehta, everybody. Thank you for sharing the journey and the knowledge with us. Please come back soon.
Absolutely. Appreciate you inviting me.
Avoid trying to do thousands of things that doesn't work. We have 274 templates for your business success. Reach your ambitious goals with one-on-one sprint coach.